prayer.
Heavenly Father, again, like always, we give you thanks and praise for this life you've given us, this community that we live in, the health that we have to be here even this evening. All of us who are here this evening in this meeting. I just pray, Lord, to guide us in the conversations with listening ears and just respect in how we communicate and give us the wisdom and guidance in how to decide as a council here tonight and in these topics that are being brought up for the betterment of the city, for this community as a whole. We are in this together. Again, you have put us in this community here for such a time as this. And so we just call on you to guide us this evening and pray just a covering and a blessing over every citizen of this community this evening. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Chair is going to take and accept a motion to approve the agenda, but we're going to do a couple different things different. First, when in 13, section 13, other business, we're going to move item D up to item A, and then bump every following action or motion later. And then at the advice of Councilman Danforth, he came up with a great idea. For all the people who have been waiting a long time, we're going to move you up first on the agenda. So instead of going last, we're going to have you go first. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to do the item 13F, the reimbursement of medical cannabis license fees charged prior to 2024. We're going to take that first. And then we are going to do 13E, which is the approval of the development agreement with Mother of God Monastery. So that's how we're going to handle it. With that, the chair will entertain a motion to approve that agenda. Motion made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Peters. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Now is the time for open forum. If there's anyone here who would like to address the council on something that is not on today's agenda, now is your time to do so. Oh, yep. Go sit there and make sure that the little green light is on the microphone. And just make sure you identify yourself and who you're representing. If you're representing yourself, that's just say, I'm here for myself.
Good evening, Council. My name is Kyle G. Horst. I am the editor-in-chief of the Watertown Current newspaper, and I will be joining you for all matters public from here on out until we get a city reporter. We go live on September 9th, and we will be daily news, online, and print once a week.
Thank you very much. I know that there's a lot of people looking forward to this, so thank you for doing that. Any other open forum? All right. We will go into item 13F, reimbursement of medical cannabis license fees charged prior to 2024. City Manager Mack, do you want to kick that off?
I can certainly try, Mayor. Thank you. City Attorney Carrico will be helping with this discussion. This item has been brought up a couple of different times. You'll recall that in late 2023, the council took action to lower the medical cannabis fees effective in 2024 from $25,000 down to $5,000. There's been some discussion, but no definitive action on potential reimbursement of fees that were paid in 2023. Councilman Bueller has asked that this be brought in front of you all for discussion and action. Staff is not recommending approval of that, and I'll let Attorney Carrico dive into the details of it, and I will stand by for any questions you might have.
Attorney Carrico?
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, I reviewed, I believe some of the reimbursement was requested was just due to the fact that you guys had lowered the fee. Obviously, there was, you guys have reviewed it over the course of a couple years and had decided to reduce the fee, which, great. However, when I reviewed the tape of the city council meeting when the fees were initially assessed back in '21, I believe, they were reasoned, they were valid, and I think you are creating a slippery slope by reimbursing fees. You will then get, you know, what's the difference between this and another fee that is assessed later for a different subject? They were all reasoned out, and you guys decided to lower it, and I don't feel any need to reimburse. I guess I would also acknowledge the opposite. If you increase the fee, would you be able to go back and ask that person to pay more for past fees? And I'll leave it with that.
Thank you. City Manager Mack?
Attorney Carrico, would you like to comment on the fee schedule? I think part of this discussion has come up based on who has paid when, and maybe give a synopsis of that.
Yes, council, just so you're aware, part of the request for reimbursement, and I apologize for not mentioning it earlier, was that perhaps one of the other dispensaries had not paid the same amount of fees as the other two. There are 3 total. We are currently auditing the records of that. Part of the confusion was that one particular dispensary changed ownership. And so we are following through on those applications and their timeline and their payments to make sure that all the dispensaries have paid the same amount of fees to date. We have been in contact with that particular dispensary, and so we are working through that paperwork, and they have agreed that, you know, if it does turn out to be that they are, you know, they owe us more in fees, that they will make up the difference.
Thanks. City Manager Mack, anything more? Okay. I don't need to do this, but I know that there are people here who would like to address the council on this issue, so I am going to open up a public hearing. If you would like to speak on this issue, please come forward and identify yourself and who you're representing.
Okay, I'm Dan Fierstead, once again, representing the Lions Den. I did some talking with my consultant / lawyer today, and just kind of gathered a little bit more info as far as how the state law was written on this. And the governing body of a municipality may enact an ordinance imposing reasonable fees for any local cannabis license, permit, or registration. So reasonable as far as $25,000. When I looked at every other municipality like us, Brookings, they're at $5,000. When we were in here, the current city attorney at the time, Matt Roby, he did advise that we should not go that high because it could not be justified. Basically, you know, I mean, if I could see where the city's workload analysis that shows $25,000 of staff being spent on this, and that's just from me, so that's $75,000 a year between the 3 of us. And yeah, the main reason I was in here because 2 of us did end up paying the $25,000 for this year, and the one other dispensary paid $5,000. So I mean, basically that puts me on an on-level playing field against my competitors, and it's just, you know, it's not right. And I don't think it's right legally that you can charge one dispensary one price and another one another. I know the dates were off, like you said, and that was all I was told when I handed in originally. I had to have my $25,000 with my application, which I did. And I understand the other people, they handed in either later, which that's your guys' audit. That is pretty fishy there, the dates on that. I don't know how that happened either. But that's why I'm just asking for a refund right now for the $20,000 for this year. And I think that would be fair, and that's about all I got to say about that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council on this issue? All right, I will close the public hearing, open it up for action. Can I get a motion to reimburse the medical cannabis license fees? Thank you. Moved by Councilman Bueller. This is for discussion purposes, and seconded by Councilman Danforth. All right, open it up for discussion, council. Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. I I think I'm probably barking up the wrong tree here right now, the way it looks. Seems like the sentiment for this one is not to allow it. But my argument was this. We originally charged $25,000 for the initial fee for these licenses. And I think most of us felt like the recreational marijuana law was going to go through. And I think one of the reasons we had that high a price, and to me, I didn't agree with that to begin with, that it was too high. To me, it's punitive. This is a business. It's a legitimate business these people are operating, and we don't do that to everybody else. We're imposing this huge fee on them. Well, then to go past that, then recreational does not pass. So then we as a council decide, you know what, that's a lot. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't, because we're going to continue to charge them $25,000 a year. So then we said, well, no, let's not do that. Let's drop it down to $5,000, which to me was way more reasonable. Well, some of these guys had already paid that second $25,000. That's my logic. My logic is that. Do I think it's a precedent? I don't. I don't think that's going to set a precedent. This is kind of a thing in its own. It's different. This whole thing, the whole process, something starting out new like this. But when we were in place, when we were putting these things in 21, we did this with the idea that it was going to cost, there's going to be social costs to this, police issues, some of those things, we would try to recoup some of the costs with that. Well, with medicinal, I don't know that that's an issue. So that's my reasoning. That's my logic behind reimbursing these folks, because to me, it doesn't seem fair. So there you have it. That's all I got to say about that, too.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilman Jurens.
I, too, am going to advocate for the small business person strongly. And when we made that decision, I'm not sure if it was a month too late for this or if it was 60 days too late. But I've been in the customer service business since I was, I don't remember, doesn't matter. Anyway, in that world, we reimburse people for time that they haven't used. We reimburse people for a product that they have not used. And why in the world of customer service in government wouldn't it be the same? I'm like Bruce, I don't believe we are setting any different type of precedents. This is a $25,000 fee on a small business person. So I'm going to stay an advocate for the small business owner. I'm going to be an advocate later on in some later discussion here for the small business owner. I believe they need a break. I don't believe they need any handouts, but they need a break in this situation. I will be voting with Bruce on this one tonight.
Councilman Bueller. Not Bruce.
Sorry, Councilman Bueller.
Councilman Danforth.
Councilman Bueller. Fantasy football is tomorrow night, by the way.
Well, Bruce and Lynn. No, I'm just kidding. If you go back, it's easy hindsight's great. We can look back and we can say what we could have, should have done. When this was presented to the council back whenever that time frame was, the legislature or the people out of here used the word reasonable for a reason, because they didn't want to go out on that branch and dictate what it should be. At the time, we looked at others, and most of the communities hadn't actually set their fees yet. They were talking about fee levels, but they hadn't set them. Okay? And so the other thing that we discussed was, is this going to be open-ended? Are we going to allow any number of these licenses, or are we going to limit them? And we agreed that the value of this was much greater if we limited it, and we ended up limiting it to 3. Is that correct? I believe is the number? 3. Yes. 3. So that was part of our justification for saying, it's got a higher value. Because what if it would have been terribly successful? Would we be sitting here right now? We don't know that. So we set a fee based on what we knew at the time. And in our fee schedule, we don't guarantee anything in regards to the simultaneous average yearly cost or monthly cost. It's based on when your application comes in. Where you hit that count in the calendar, that's just a roll of the dice. It really is. I can't support changing it. I don't personally, and I've made suggestions of how we could do it better, but I'm not going to legislate from this side on that issue. We have to go with what we've done in the past and what our rules are, and I can't support the reimbursement. We made decisions to the best of our ability and the decisions that we made at the time.
Can I speak one more time?
Councilman Tupper?
I would tend to agree with Councilman Danforth. You know, irregardless whether recreational marijuana went in or not. I mean, this was a license. We figured out a price that we felt was reasonable at the time on medical marijuana. So even bringing up the recreational marijuana situation, I don't think is fair. But I got to agree with Councilman Danforth as far as, you know, we look at our fee schedule every year, see if there's any fees that very seldom do they ever go down. Would that be a correct statement? Yeah. But we felt that.
Mr. Fierstead, not yet.
No, I'm not going to say nothing.
We felt that maybe we did make a mistake. We didn't know what we didn't know at the time. You know, people pay $200,000 for a liquor license. People pay, the city of Sioux Falls can issue 2 more, and they're looking at $1 million apiece. That's the city. The city dictates the cost of that. I don't think the $25,000 at the time was unreasonable because, like I say, we didn't know what we didn't know. But we've corrected that, and the timing issue on this. I mean, if we were to raise it, would we have gone back to those people who weren't due at that time and asked them for more money? I don't think so.
Mr. Fierstead, we don't allow interplay, but what I will allow is we could say, we will frame that in the form of a question to a business owner who has paid the license. So that comment like we, aren't going to go back and ask for more money if we raise it, and we set it at a time when we thought it would be fair because we limited the licenses. So that in the form of a question is to a business owner who has paid that. I know that you want a chance to speak to it.
Yep, I just wanted to say we've actually paid 3 times at 25, Councilman Bruce, so that's 75,000. And prices on these do move a lot. My consultant, he used to be on the civil side of things. He wrote up a lot of the literature for Denver. They started at 5,000 per license in Denver. They're now down to 2,000 per license. So as far as moving them up and down, yes, they do move in this industry a lot. And that actually, in Denver, he was telling me that came with 5 different city agencies that actually did inspections on the dispensaries. Where Watertown, the Department of Health handles all that stuff, so you guys didn't have to bring on any extra people, in my mind, to justify that 25,000. So that's why, and as far as the date, to Councilman Danforth, in Brookings, they had people come in at different times on their licenses. And as a city, they got together and they made sure they all pay on February 2nd now, so nobody is in basically on an unequal playing field. I mean, the dispensary that didn't have to pay up, they obviously have 30 grand more product on their shelves than I do, and it makes it unfair. So that's why I want the $20,000 refund, and I'm trying to be as cordial as I can about it here.
City Manager Mack, you wanted to say something?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to speak to the dispensary that didn't pay, what happened was they went through a name change of organization, and you can't transfer licenses. So it got missed that they needed to pay. It wasn't that they didn't pay because they were on some different kind of cycle. It was a clerical error. They have been informed that those are dollars owed. Now, if this body makes a decision to reimburse, they won't have to owe those. But it wasn't because everybody's on a different cycle. It really was a mistake when the name change happened.
Councilman Beeler?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to point something out, and this goes to Councilman Danforth, a comment that he made. These licenses don't have a value. They're not worth $25,000. They're not worth anything. That's the cost, that's the fee we charge for them to go into business. They're not transferable. And Councilman Tupper, you had mentioned liquor store licenses. Yeah, those can be sold. Those have value. These do not. They don't have value. So you can't look at that, I don't think.
Councilman Peters?
Maybe for Attorney Carrico or City Manager Mack. If a yes or no answer is appropriate, I would appreciate one. But has the Lions Den paid any more than the other providers? Because I think we're getting into a debate of what the fees should be, and that's been established at a prior time. And now I'm just wondering, have they paid any more or any less than anybody else?
Because of the clerical error, yes.
But
Which
that
is
will be
being
corrected? Okay.
Yes.
So once corrected,
All be equal.
all be equal. Okay.
Any further questions or comments? All right, just to clarify, if you want to reimburse $20,000, then you will vote yes. If you do not want to reimburse $20,000, you will vote no. Is everyone clear on that? To reimburse, yes. To not reimburse, no. And I will ask Assistant Finance Officer Strickerts, would you please call the roll?
Danforth,
No.
Pauline,
No.
Jurens,
Yes.
Peters,
No.
Shuddy,
No.
Tupper,
No.
and Bueller.
Motion does not carry. We are going to move to item 13E, an approval of development agreement with the Mother of God Monastery for the transition of Little Blessings Daycare. And we'll start with City Manager Mack.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I'm sure there are plenty of others here who can contribute to this discussion. We had a meeting last Wednesday at Lake Area Tech. The city, the county, Lake Area Tech was involved, the school district, Boys and Girls Club, our friends from Mother of God Monastery, Sarah Faust with the county, to discuss not just the Little Blessings daycare situation, but childcare as a whole in Cottington County, and look at different options that may be available for working towards solutions. A couple of pieces that have come out of that. First and foremost is the Little Blessings potential closure. As Sister Barb described on Wednesday, and Pastor Justin was there as well to talk about the church's situation and their need for that space. The monastery has a 14,000 square foot facility that they would renovate into childcare space to house the newly formed Little Blessings Daycare. It'd be a new tax ID number and such, and carry that staff and management over into their facility. There's some significant renovation work that needs to be done in order to house not only the 125 current spots for Little Blessings, but to double that to 250, another 100, to 225 spots. In order for the Mother of God Monastery to continue to move forward with that project, they are working on securing a South Dakota Works loan. In order to secure the loan, they need some financial backing. That is what they've asked not only the city, but the county and other entities to participate in. There's a $500,000 ask out there. This morning, the county commission took action to contribute $150,000 towards that $500,000 ask, $30,000 over 5 years. It's my understanding, and Sister Barb can correct me if I'm wrong, that the dollars do not all have to come up front. They simply need assurance that the dollars will be there to help make the loan payments. application for the South Dakota Works loan is due here in the next couple of weeks. So timing is of the essence. In the agenda item, we called it a development agreement. It could be as simple as a resolution. You could dive deeper into requirements of a development agreement if you like. I was asked to put this on the agenda to start the conversation and come to a resolution on this specific piece of the childcare issue. Additionally, more long-term, it's been discussed, the idea of creating a revolving loan fund, what that looks like, the details of it, who would participate, have not been vetted out yet. When we talk about landing the plane, if we're traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast, this is the first layover in Chicago. So we gotta do our layover, figure out little blessings, and what, if anything, we can do with that, and then pick the plane back up and make our way west. So with that, I would turn it over to anybody else, whether Barb or Sarah or anybody else who was part of the discussion on Wednesday would like to speak. Otherwise, I would stand by for any questions, but just so we're clear, we're talking about the gap of $350,000 to be pledged over 5 years.
Thank you very much. Again, I don't have to do this, but I know that there are people here who would like to speak on this issue, so I'm going to give that opportunity in a public hearing setting. But I also would encourage everyone here who has been here before to try to keep the information new. I believe that there's going to be a lot of questions coming from the council, and I think that's really where this is going to be hammered out. Probably not as much in an official speaking capacity. So, but I don't want to discourage anyone from taking the stand, so please come forward, just introduce yourself.
Sister Barb Younger from Mother of God Monastery and the project manager of the Harmony Hill. Really, I wanted to thank you all for convening last week's meeting. I think it was incredibly helpful. Since that meeting, I've had a pledge of $60,000 from a couple of local businesses, so we are getting traction, and that was part of our ask in the first place. So what can we do together to bring this to fruition? So I have been saying pretty much the same thing for the last 5 months about this issue. I know the crisis is right in front of our face, and I fear that we could go backwards if we don't come up with a solution for the most current crisis. So thank you for entertaining this idea.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Sarah, it's up to you.
I don't have anything new.
Okay.
Said it all.
All right. In order to facilitate the discussion that has to happen at a council level, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the development agreement with the Mother of God Monastery to transition Little Blessings Daycare in the amount of $350,000 to be paid over 5 years.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Let's open it up for discussion. Councilman Tupper, you want to lead us off?
I'd love to, Mayor. Thank you. You know, we spent a lot of time talking about this. The mayor and myself were out visiting Sister Barb, the other two meetings we've had, doing a lot of studying what other communities are doing in this situation. It is right now before this situation with a lot of work that Sarah's done, we're in a crisis situation already without Little Blessings. I look at this as much as a economic development, just like an economic development grant, I suppose you might say. Because if we can't find daycare for, let's say, 140 kids, how many parents is that going to have to keep home? Let's just pick out a number. Let's say it's 50.
100.
It's 100? Okay. Well, that's 100 more employees that our employers in the city of Watertown have a hard time filling right now that they're going to have to fill. Not only that, if we got that many shortages, is somebody going to, and I'm just going to pull a business, well, let's say the hospital. If they're trying to encourage a doctor to come to Watertown, and let's say they're both professionals and they got 2 kids, but they can't find daycare. Now that that intrudes in our healthcare system. In in any industry we look at, I don't think it's as much as like some people. I've had people email me, and what are we using tax dollars to pay for this with? Well, our tax dollars are used to invest in the community. And we have to, as a body, we have to invest those dollars wisely. And like I say, this is as much economic development. It's a quality of life issue. I've gotten a lot of good emails. I've gotten a lot of bad emails. But my gut, my brain and my heart tell me this is the right thing to do. And it's only the beginning, because I know Sarah's got a lot of work. We want to look at this as a whole issue. I mean, there's 600 kids short right now without this. If we don't start addressing it, other communities already have, and they're going to be the key points where those people want to move. And I don't think Watertown wants to fall behind on that. So that's my point to the whole situation. I think it's very, very. I'd just soon be looking ahead of the game than trying to work behind the game and try to catch up again. So I strongly support this.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further conversation, questions? Councilman Danforth?
I'm going to ask this of Sister. Probably Sister's the best one if I can. I have a couple questions here. First a comment. I have gotten contacted or stopped by a lot of different people. We've all gotten the emails. And so there's really no question about trying to understand the need. But I will say, as Mr. Tupper had said, that other than the people that have been involved with this directly, meaning have kids there or maybe grandparents or somebody very, very close, I haven't had anyone in the public telling me we need to support this. In fact, it's been contrary. It's been the why are we supporting this? So our job, unfortunately, is we have 22,000 people in this community. So it's to look at both sides of this thing. And sometimes the majority and how they feel is the right way to go, and sometimes it's not the right way to go. And you just got to go with what you feel is the right thing for the community based on what you know. That's my initial comments. Sister, I got a couple questions. Now what do I do with them? All right. What are the hours, the planned hours of operation? I know Prairie Lakes, gentlemen, the CEO had mentioned, unless you have a 24/7, 365, doesn't do them any good. Okay, I understand that from their overall needs. But what are the hours, planned hours of operation?
So with this transitional move, it will start at 5:30 a.m. Currently, Little Blessings, I believe, starts at 6 a.m. But in this new schema, they wanted to support the healthcare industry, which is the greatest need for that 6 to 6 shift, and to open at 5:30. So that is the newly planned hours. And so I believe it closes at 6:30. So they have would be 5:30 to 6:30.
So would that be Monday to Friday? Is that?
Yes.
So that's Monday to Friday. So no matter what we do, we've got a lot of holes in our overall plan, not this plan, but our overall.
Absolutely,
need
we
for,
do.
For daycare. Sister, I haven't had the opportunity to see and read a pro forma or whatever that is, the financials and such. But, one of my concerns on something like this is I repeatedly see or hear profitability issues. And that's why these types of organizations, these types of services find it hard to get open and stay open. What are you going to do different? Because my concern is we do this and then a year from now, you're sitting there asking for more money for operational in 2 years, and it's just a perpetual request for city dollars, and maybe and certainly those of others as well. So, what's the plan in regards to how we make this a sustainable business?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because I think childcare is especially whether it's a nonprofit or for-profit, the profit margin's very small, like a traditional nonprofit. So you don't have a lot to work with. So what we did is we enlisted 2 very good consultants from Sioux Falls who owned the best daycares down there. It was their family business. They sold it right before the pandemic changed everybody's life. And so they have created a new pro forma using Little Blessings' current numbers and figures as a way to look for efficiencies. Every business has a sweet spot, has a spot where your staff and your ratio to kids in a daycare business is maxed. So in other words, if I have 3 babies in a room, I still need 2 adults. But if I have 10 babies in a room, I have 2 adults. So that's where you start to see efficiency, is with the ratio between your kiddos and your staff. And so what we did with the pro forma is we pretty much turned over Little Blessings profit and loss and balance sheets and went through it line by line and got rid of the inefficiencies. One of the other things Little Blessings hasn't done is market. And so that is another piece of this, is marketing the benefits of having your child at Little Blessings. Now, they are capped on capacity where they are. They have 100 kids on their waiting list. So if right now they're at 125 and we can take 225, it's a no-brainer. It's full on day one. And so we do have a ramp-up pro forma. So part of the inefficiency of where Little Blessings is right now is they don't, because of their space, they don't have a great staff to kid ratio where it's efficient, where you have enough kids paying for the staff members. Does that make sense? So that's one of the issues right there. The other thing that we know has been problematic is keeping staff. Every business owner knows all that. In daycare, it's been pretty tough, especially with the pandemic and the way that basically the minimum wage went up during that time. And so the commitment to staff training, to staff longevity is there. And part of that comes with benefits, because right now there are no benefits like healthcare benefits or anything else being offered there. So the staff, retaining staff, having good staff, being licensed is another way of making this efficient. The other piece of this is also that for our staff is the training. So what is the training that makes you a licensed facility? The thing that is good about being a licensed facility is there are lots of grants out there to help you, number one. We've applied for about $270,000 worth of grants, which we should know in the next couple of weeks, before the end of September, where we landed in all of those grants. So it could be for the playground, fire and life safety, sprinklers, all that kind of stuff. Security cameras. So there are grants to be had out there all the time. So that's another way to make this efficient, and to have extra income to support your program. You have to be licensed or a registered daycare provider for the parents to get any kind of subsidy. The state offers a subsidy to parents. And so one of the things that's beneficiary to the parents is to be a center who helps the parents make that application. Says, here's how you can subsidize, if you qualify, your fees for your kids. And so that's the other thing that's really important. The money is out there, so we want people to access that money and get reimbursed if they fit into that right financial framework.
Sister, what do you anticipate? How will your fees be reflected versus what the average fees are today with Little Blessings?
Little Blessings currently, it's $210 a week for kids between infant and 5 years old. I can't speak to the after-school care kids right now. So it will go up 3% every year, just because you have to give your employees a raise. So that's just a straight up. And unless there would be some terrible financial crisis, which we'd all be in trouble, that would be the rate at which parents could expect fees to increase. So that's another reason why we wouldn't want to take out a couple $1 million worth of construction loans. How do you pay that off on a 5% profit margin and not have it fall right back into parents? So it will stay at the rate it is right now. In January, it'll go up 3%, and that's just to be expected. One of the things that I know Pastor Justin would say in retrospect is Family Worship Center over the years, because they've been in business almost 30 years, did not raise the fees at the appropriate times. And so that really made a huge financial strain. So that shared expectation with parents to have a quality staff and a quality facility, you have to be able to say, we're going to raise the fee 3% every year. It has to happen or you don't have staff.
Let me find my notes here again. So this money is going to be used to renovate so that this could operate. Would the monastery remain the owner of that property and then lease it back?
We would remain the owner of, the sisters are the owner of the property, yes. So it's a lease agreement, there's no purchase.
So if and when this business were to cease, then whatever there exists is yours to do whatever you choose with it.
Right, so you could look at it as we are building to suit the leasee.
Build the lease. Okay. Well, I'm just going to make a comment. My biggest concern, really, two concerns. One is we got to do something. And my biggest concern is that we don't know what we don't know. I've heard that said tonight on a number of cases, is that there ends up being this, we can't do it as we expected, and so there's this repeated ask. And that is a big concern of mine.
Yeah.
But that said, at the meeting, I said we have to get out of the box and we have to be leaders, and that's where I think I'm at in this. That the majority of the people that have talked to me have said, and not adamantly, don't get me wrong, I think there's that sense of why tax dollars kind of thing. I think in this case, the majority has been heard, but I think the minority of what we need to do is to support this in some way, and what's proposed. If that works, I think that's what we got to do.
I see, Sarah, you seem like you want to be moving. Do you have further answers to the questions that Councilman Danforth asked?
I think in response to the question about the expense to our community and what do we need, when we look at how we as a community support our community itself, it's really important that we look at childcare being that issue. Our children are our future, they are our now, and we need to make sure we're taking care of them in a good quality way. One example of how this is costing our community money, we can say, why are we spending the money on childcare? In the social services world, we communicate and we talk and we have conversations. And I recently have talked to the TANF workers, which is the temporary assistance for needy families. In the past, their caseload has been around 10. That number has tripled in the last 12 months, and a majority of those families that are needing assistance is a result of childcare. So it's costing our community money one way or another, and it's just how we want to spend our money. If we want to get people in the workforce, really have an economic impact, and get people off of assistance programs, we need to provide childcare so that they can do that. We need to have the opportunity and the availability for that. So that's.
Thank you. Councilman Danforth, anything else before? Councilman Peters?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Well, I would maybe just start by saying we've come a long way in a couple weeks. When this was first brought to us, we were asked to, as a council, support a $500,000 commitment up front to the monastery. And I think I speak for a lot of us up here when I had a lot of reservations on that. And I said, I don't know if we should be doing that with tax dollars without clear expectations of how that money is going to be used. So City Manager Mack, along with Mayor Holeen, led kind of a task force meeting, and we had a good brainstorm dialogue of, well, where do we go from here? And the idea of a revolving loan fund was birthed for a long-term solution. And I do hope that we still work towards that. One thing that has me somewhat concerned on this $350,000 earmark is that I don't want to lose focus of the long-term solution by just putting a Band-Aid on the short-term solution. So I'm kind of putting all of us on trial up here to say, let's not forget about the long-term solution, because the stats that Sarah had showed was that we have a lot of kids that still need spots in daycare. And $350,000 at the monastery just simply isn't going to do it. So although I'm supportive of the $350,000, I don't want there to be any traction lost on the greater solution. So I do want to say thank you to the staff for figuring out some kind of solution to move forward. And I do want to say thank you to the county for stepping up in conjunction with the city. Without the county stepping up, I would have a really hard time supporting some kind of financial ask. So thank you.
Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and I'd just like to chime in a little bit too. I was also a part of the discussion, some of the meetings that we've had, and I had opportunity as well to spend time with Sister Barb at the facility. But, you know, I think we all know this is going to make a big difference in the development of our children. One of the things I think that was kind of neat on this whole concept was that some of the patrons from the retirement facility would spend time with these children. And there are some studies that show that that is very beneficial to those children that have that available to them. But, you know, this, you know, from an industrial development standpoint, number one is the kids. How we're going to develop these kids into being great kids, great people, students. But also, I think, you know, we're going to retain employees here that would have to maybe move away. I mean, that's going the opposite direction of what we want to do for industrial development. You know, and the other part is we're going to bring people in here. If somebody's looking at, hey, maybe I'm going to move to Watertown for this job, and no child care, that's going to make a huge difference in getting people to come here to begin with. So I think that's really important. But, you know, the fact that we're getting 2 buildings out there, and they're primarily done. I mean, it's not like we're starting from scratch, buying land, excavating, putting in 2 new buildings. They're there, you know, and this is going to help us a great deal to move this thing forward in a hurry, I think. Because what we have to do is we just have to renovate those 2 buildings. And the other thing, I did point this out, and I'll point it out again, is that, you know, for industrial development, for revenue development in our community, we have the Convention Visitors Bureau, we have the Watertown Development Company, and we have the Chamber of Commerce. And, you know, I think we're in the neighborhood of, we support them annually with around $750,000. Is that not right, Ms. Mack? So we're kind of doing the same thing here with this money. And this is a one-time thing. We do those things on an annual basis. And I think some of those entities are looking for more. So I think this is we're lucky to have this. I think this is a great, I think this dropped in our laps, and it's a very good thing. So that's all I have to say about that too. Thank you.
Councilman Jerns?
I'm having a philosophical issue with the government solving this problem. I think today that we have something that needs to be solved. And we've heard, and I've listened to all the discussions, I've read every email, and I thank you specifically to these 2 ladies who've spoken tonight. Empathy, they feel like they're doing the right thing, and I'd feel like doing the right thing also if I voted yes to this. I am really struggling with this one, and there's a lot of reasons why. And many constituents in Watertown have shared reasons why we are all having an issue with this. We can bring out a lot of things. I'm not going to go there. I believe it's a dripping faucet, and the faucets that drip really suck. I've fixed a lot of them. They just nag at you. They cost you money. They cost you in higher utilities. And this $350,000 is nothing if we have 600 more slots. If we only fill this, we need the employers to be involved in this. I heard everything up until Friday till I got the agenda from the city that this was going to be a revolving fund, and we had tons of support for that. And I believe we're having tons of support from the major employers in town. how do we incentivize the small business owner, the in-home daycares, to continue putting in-home daycares in their homes to help solve this issue? We aren't going to be able to continue giving them government money from the city coffers to be able to do that. We don't have that type of budget. We are seeing lower tax revenues, and I don't see an end game in this. I see that we're going to give one entity a chunk of money, and then what about the other large daycare that's just getting up and running and getting some traction, and they're getting employers to come in and say, I will do this for 10 slots. I will help my employee. So I get that we are talking about, we're going to draw employers. We're going to draw employees to Watertown. We need employees in Watertown. We need employers to step up to the plate and be a player in this and have the Watertown Development Corporation be our advocate and our economic development arm. The city should not be an economic developer. The city should not own and develop land. That is not where we're good. We've had discussions. We don't even know what the market value of land is in Watertown, and we're trying to be developers. This doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to a lot of people, and it doesn't make sense to me either yet. So I've listened to the ideas from very emotional parents that need a solution. I hear you. I have been in your feet. I have tried to find daycare for kids. I actually reached out to more ladies since I saw this agenda item than I have men. Way more ladies, because I wanted their version, a more empathetic version, because usually that is on their shoulders. I'm not hearing the support. I'm not hearing that the location is solid enough to be dumping taxpayer money in. That's going to be very inconvenient. I think it's a great location for a lot of things, but I don't think it's a location for the city and the county. Not my say in the county, because I'm not on that board. I think the location is challenging for parents. I think that we've had locations out by the airport that were challenging. They're no longer there. So there's a lot of things that constituents, not only very few of them were in my ward. I went throughout town. I talked to employers. Large employers, and they think we have hit the panic button. And when the panic button has been hit, we need to step back and look at all of the options that we have in front of us. I don't feel like I have had a chance to look at other options, to feel out other employers. Yeah, I got to a few of them in the last 3 or 4 days, but I haven't gotten to enough. I don't feel comfortable with this. I will be on the opposite side of the first 5 votes that you heard are going to get yes. That's the way it goes some days. I hope, like it's been said, that there are more solutions to the other 600 that we need, because we need more employers. We need more employees. We need employees to be happy. But I'd like to see this be a broader group of different entities at the table.
Councilman Peters? No? Councilman Schutte?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I too, I was out at the facility here last week and was fortunate to be able to look it over and appreciate the work, Sister Barb, that you've all been doing out there. You've made some strides in the last 8-9 months with, getting, architects involved and consultants involved, and so you've definitely already put some money into this, and so I can see that it's on its way. I mean, I can see that this is going in the right direction, and I agree. I do. I can see this as potentially a very good fit. The question is, where does the city get involved? And so what was mentioned in last week at the town hall, it was brought up there were 600 spots potentially of children, shortage of needing some spots. This would fill 200, let's just say, for easy math, 225. And does this set a precedence as a council if let's say another entity, which one was brought up last week, if they step up in the next 6 months and realize, yep, we want to do this too, and we give, let's just say here, $350,000, who's to say that I wouldn't blame them if another entity that comes up in the next 6 months says, well, we did this already with this, and you did that already with this one. Why would we not want to expect the same thing that they want out of us for them? And if a third one were to come up and say we get all 600 spots filled, I'm just saying, what if? Then that's over $1 million that some may be thinking the city should be partnering with in this process. So all that said, on that particular point, we can't as a city just be the one entity that's going to fix this problem. And so I was encouraging, in partnering with individuals and entities in the community here, that's been a discussion. That's something other councilmen have brought up, and we are, I believe, looking into how to do this correctly, potentially with another company in town, like the development company or whomever it may be, to get other businesses involved, other entities involved, and the city being a part of that, and giving, let's say, into that particular revolving loan fund, or if it's a grant or whatever, however it gets done, I could see the value. Then we're just giving to that, and then from that particular fund, it's being dispersed to, be it, a smaller daycare, be it another larger daycare. Maybe there's a percentage based off, of course, your size. I can see that there is. Personally, I see that as a better way of doing this instead of just giving $350,000 to one entity. What came out of that last meeting was also very encouraging because Sister Barb, you had mentioned that just in the last week you've got a pledge of $60,000. So we've already see a pledge of $60,000 since that meeting. We see the county stepping in with $150,000. So there's $210,000 already. And depending on what we decide to do here this evening, originally, I believe it was 500,000 was one of the numbers that was brought up, and I believe it was brought up, originally, I think in initial stages, I believe it was considered to use this 500,000 for the help with the construction, to help get things moving forward. However, it's based off, I believe, where the county's doing it. They're gonna push that out for the next 5 years, 30,000 a year. So that won't really help with construction costs. If we as a city do this, 30,000 will help with the construction costs. I mean, because we as a city, if we do $75,000 a year for, let's say, for the next 5 years, that would be between the two entities, $100,000 in the first year. How does that help? I guess that'd be one question if you could answer. How does that help the construction process early on?
Well, I appreciate the thinking about it that way. And I had offered that because we have to pay off the South Dakota Works $500,000 loan. So in effect, it helps pay that off. But we can't even remove one nail out of the wall before I would get the SD Works loan, or that's null and void. And so when you look at $500,000 SD Works loan, which has to be paid back, that helps us pay it back over time. So that would be one way that would work. Does that make sense? So it's not for operations. No matter what we do, we have to borrow money to pay for the renovation. I mean, there's just no way around it. So that would help that over 5 years, get it paid off.
Okay, and you can, you can absolutely stay right there in case I have another question for you to answer. That would be great.
Sure.
So I appreciate that feedback and clarifying that. So basically there would be the funds then to be able to do the construction cost, the SD, Works loan and whatever other funding you have within your own organization. You have the funds to start this. So these payments would help basically start paying off those loans. So it isn't necessarily you need the money up front this first year. It's the commitment that helps for, sticking your neck out in this business plan and knowing you've got some help in that.
Right, and we are sticking our neck out on this. There's no doubt about it. The sisters are, when you renovate a building, that building's going to be that way for 20 or 30 years. You know, it's not just a drop in the bucket. We're not cavalier about that. I totally agree with what you have said about it should not be any one entity's job to make this happen. This is a community problem. It has to have a community solution. So we'd love to entertain what does it look like if businesses said, hey, you know what? I got 10 employees who need childcare. I want to buy or subsidize those 10 spots. I'd love to talk about those kind of solutions. And so part of the problem is the timeline and the crunch that Family Worship Center and Little Blessings find themselves in. That is part of the impetus that made Pastor Justin call me in January. Wasn't planning on doing this now. And so they have a crush there. The other crush for us is the SD Works loan and the $270,000 worth of grants. And so without those two things, then the ability for us to transition Little Blessings goes away pretty immediately. So that's where we're between a rock and a rock as a community.
Thank you for that, yes. So, and we're starting to get some ground, some people have given, pledged some money.
Right.
Us as a city, if we were to do this amount, it'll be, over the next 5 years. But again, it's gonna help pay off the loans down the road. So me and just kind of working through this and had some other conversations with others and brainstorming, being that we are looking to get more involvement from the community, because it's going to take this. There's some time to do that in the next year, 6 months, 2 months. But right now is the time to get this project moving forward. This with the SD Works loan and things like that. So you have the funds are there to be able to start the project with or without this. It's just more security to know you can pay off some of these loans, in the next 5-year period. So right now there's already $210,000, and let's just say as a city we were to give $100,000 to this, because we absolutely see the need for this. If we were to give $100,000, that pays off the next year, the first year's loan payment, which buys a whole nother year. So that's a 2-year period. Well, hopefully in the next 3 to 5 to 6 months, we can get this, this other program involved, where we can get other businesses going, other entities involved, individuals. And if we do that, there could be more money than just the 250, less than 100 that I'm just suggesting. Let's say if we gave 100,000, there's going to be other entities getting involved, which theoretically should generate more revenue to help, for example, especially on a larger facility like yours with startup, or another larger facility, or individual companies. And then it's centered around a fair and balanced way than just a government agency funding one particular company or nonprofit organization. So with that thought process, this is just me, and maybe it won't have any traction at all, but I'd like to make an amendment to the motion for $100,000 this year, a one-time, but with the intent, of course, as we've been discussing, gives us some time, because the project can get started, and especially if you'd have $310,000 already guaranteed, that gives us time to start getting more involved and more city entities involved, more businesses to help kind of fill that $200,000 gap to whatever else that may entail in the next couple years. So I'm going to make an amendment to the motion to do $100,000 this year as a one-time.
Right, we have a proposal for an amendment. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to amend the motion to clarify this for the entire council. The amended motion would be to fund this to the tune of $100,000 for this year. That's all that we can, intent doesn't mean anything when it comes to legal language. So that is the amendment. So we're on discussion of the amendment, not the original motion. So just on the amendment. Councilman Peters?
I have a question for you, Sister Barb. On the amendment proposed, does that work to trigger the South Dakota Works funds?
No, the business plan that I wrote along with the performer that I have says that I've got $500,000 community support. So, when you go through the GOED process, there's a working group that looks at all your your initial stuff before you get the application. So my business plan includes $500,000 from the local community, a pledge, a commitment to make that business plan work. Because SD Works will only give you 21% of the actual cost of construction.
Councilman Peters?
And I have to have it in by September 10th. So,
Yeah, I guess where I'm getting hung up on this is, I like that motion. I mean, less is more for us in terms of government dollars, so yeah, I would certainly be all in for $100,000. But if that's not going to solve the problem, it's probably not a great solution. And to maybe back up a bit, and I was pondering my fellow councilman's thoughts over there in the end before I commented. I get it, and I'm with you, Lynn. I think I was there 2 weeks ago. I was probably the biggest opponent of giving cash up front, no strings attached, take it, run with it, good luck. I'm in the world of development all the time. And if I go into a community that's seeing a crisis, no matter what that crisis is, call it a housing crisis, and I work for a developer that's bringing a project to a community, and they're asking $500,000 for the land, but we're willing to deliver a project for them that gives them housing, I can almost bet that they'd be coming off of that $500,000 lot purchase price number to help figure out some kind of solution to a problem. Now, we can argue if those dollars are tangible in the sense of trading land for whatever, but I think what the sisters are proposing here is they're willing to give us a return on our investment through daycare. And so normally I totally agree, and my conservative nature would say I get the heebie-jeebies thinking about giving dollars in the form of cash to a business, but I think we're getting a good end result with this. And in your comments, Councilman Jurgens, were spot on, and I can't disagree with hardly any of them. And I think that stresses the importance of figuring out a long-term solution. Because if we help the sisters, which I fully intend to do tonight, and we don't have some kind of solution 6 months from now when the next provider comes and asks us for a request, and we tell them no, not good on us. Doesn't look good on anybody. So we need to figure out some kind of solution. And I would stress that the Watertown Development Company be a lead sponsor of that. I don't think it's our responsibility to figure out these kind of solutions. In fact, it's unfortunate that it's come to us to figure out some kind of solution. But this is the hand we're dealt. This is the timing. And I'm comfortable with the end result sponsoring this. So I would have to, unfortunately, vote against the amendment because it doesn't figure out a solution for us.
Thank you, Councilman Peters. And I would like to remind the entire council that I understand that it can't specifically be just about the amendment. It's very easy to wander off into the larger topic, but try to limit your conversation and questions at this time specifically upon the amendment. Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. I hope this fits into that category. I know this is time sensitive. I mean, this is why this is here. This is one facet of childcare, but it's for 225 kids that's come before us. And tell me if I'm wrong, Barb, but is this not $2.4 million for the project cost?
yes,
Is that what we're
that's the
looking at?
GMP.
Just so everybody understands, that's the total. There are
The total.
businesses that will contribute, and I think we've got a ways to go to try to get more businesses to contribute to this. But, you know, the cost you're looking for this loan is to help start out. I mean, you're not going to get this loan without this money. And that $350,000 is spread out over 5 years.
Right.
It's not an upfront cost, but you're going to build a playground, FF&E, and then you know all the baby stuff and
14,000 square foot, we need some HVAC, we need parking lot, we need, baby stuff.
yeah, and then obviously the renovation part of this thing. But just so we're all understanding that this project won't take off if we can't get some kind of support for her with that SD loan.
Councilman Jurgens?
If this doesn't work, where are we going? If this plan,
Is this on the amendment?
yes.
Okay.
If this plan doesn't work, we're on the line for 100,000. with the amendment. Otherwise, we're on the line for 350,000. There's no guarantee that employers are going to jump on board. There's no guarantee of anything. Childcare is one of the toughest things there is to run right now. Whether it's in your home and you have low expenses, or if it's a mass operation. They are so challenging. And I am still struggling and thinking the faucet's still leaking. I am more apt to look at Councilman Shuddy's $100,000 number, because it's not going to be 6 months. It could be next week and next month that we're going to have additional requests. So 100,000, it may not sound right, but there are additional solutions. Why does it have to be September 1? Why does it have to be December 31st? Why are we being set? I know her deadline, Councilman Danforth. I understand her deadline. We all have heard it. There is additional, she's been being put on a September 1 deadline by someone. This will continue. Why does Little Blessings have to be solved by the end of the year? There's no answers. Is there a legal issue that says it's got to be done by the end of the year? So I'm having trouble with being put on deadlines. I'm having challenges with the amount of money, because we're going to get further requests. And how much are you willing of the taxpayer dollar to put on the line to start funding the in-home daycare that wants a raise also? They are beaten down every single day. Their houses are beaten down. It is a hard business to be in. They deserve a raise. What are we going to do when they come? How many of them do we have in town, and how are we going to incentivize them to keep moving forward? That's it.
Thank you, Councilman Jurgens. And I'm not sure if it's my place, but I will just say I have asked Sister Younger that question, and as well as Sarah Faust, as to why does it have to be now? And I'm just going to give you the answer that I heard, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the fears is that if we do nothing and Little Blessings closes, which they will, that you don't have a business then, like the employees might go find other jobs, and then there will not be a business to transfer. There will not be a daycare to transfer from one location out to the monastery, in which case they'd be starting from scratch with nothing new. And then also from the possibility of getting the, let's say, the grants, if you want to call them matching grants. I will just say that I know part of the machinery going on behind the scenes, and let's just say that there are certain people who have influence at the state level who have been working with the sisters to assure that they can get the grants now, but those people will not be in those positions all the time in the future. So we can't guarantee that those grants are going to be coming anytime in the future. Am I wrong, and did I misspeak in any of those details? Now, and I'm not saying, that's just the answer that I got when I asked it, so I'm sharing that. Does not mean that your question is not valid or your concerns are not valid. Let's just say I had the exact same thing. That answer was sufficient for me, but it doesn't have to be for you. Sarah, did you have something that you wanted to add at this point?
I wanted to speak to the in-home discussion, just on the bigger picture, longer-term planning, and doesn't necessarily speak to the amendment.
Then I'm going to ask you to not speak right now.
Perfect.
Thank you. Councilman Danforth?
If what I'm hearing is really the 9/9 deadline for the grant request, is that correct? That's a hard line You don't have a whole lot of room there. It's either there or it's not, and that would be up to $500,000, correct? So there's the noose around our neck. There's the need for an action that we need to take. My understanding is the amendment today does not fulfill that need that they need for dollars. And so what if by accepting the amendment today, what we are saying is somewhere out there in the next 6 days, somebody's got to come up with $250,000. And what if that doesn't happen? I think we're being very short-sighted. I really do. And Mayor, this might bleed over into the bigger issue, if you will, please. What we're dealing with is triage. You have an accident, you do things when you bring people into the hospital just to get them through until you can have enough hands on deck to get the problem taken care of on an ongoing basis. That's really where we're at on this. I don't see a lot of choice. I really don't. I wish we had all kinds of business leaders and owners and managers out there going, here's the money. I don't see anybody out there. If you are, raise your hand, please, because I don't see you. So it's not here. So we have 6 days to get off the ball here, off the seat. This is about leadership. It's hard for us to go out and to expect us to ask people to participate if we don't participate. How do we do that? I wouldn't want to be in that role. We can't also forget, we're talking about these employers that need employees. We're a large employer in this town. What about our people and the need for that? So let's just not put this on the other people. This is us too. This is it. We play a dual role. We get taxes, but we have employees. We need to get employees. We need to keep employees. We need to take care of employees. This is that part of that as well. I would love to see, as it's been mentioned, some other mechanism for us to be able to take this money, and really all it is just a mechanism to get it, in this case, to the sisters in the monastery to get them going, just because of the time frames. We're not ready for that. We aren't anywhere close to that. And so I think what we need to do is we need to shortchange the system a little bit, knowing where the money's going to go. And there's still going to have to be people that are going to have to step up. This is a step. It's not the answer to this thing. And so, Mr. Jurgens, I agree with you 100%. I don't like where I'm at. I don't like where we're at, but we are. And so, again, I look at it and I think, well, okay, we can approve the amendment or we can knock them all down and say no. But what we just did is we kicked one leg out of our three-legged stool in hopes of a solution. And I don't see a choice. And in the whole scheme of things, and believe me, there's nobody on this side of the table that is cognizant of the taxpayer dollars any more than I am, and I know we all are, that I think I really don't see this as much of an option at this point. We need to support their efforts to see if they can get that grant.
Any further conversation on the amendment? Councilman Tupper? Anything else on the amendment? I'll go back to Councilman Shetty for the last word.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think we're all in agreement that we're all in favor of the St. Anne's Daycare. I believe, is that going to be the name of it? No, not necessarily. Okay, that's just what the building is called, as St. Anne's. Okay, so whatever it's going to, if it's still called Little Blessings, whatever it is, but with the monastery getting involved, we are all, I believe, we're all in favor of seeing this work, and I think we're in favor of us funding this and being a partner in this. I can see that around this table. It's just, how do we go about doing it? I do have one question, if it doesn't mind, for Sister Younger, just to clarify for me on this, because I'm still listening to everything being shared as well. I didn't come here just with a tunnel vision. This is where I'm going with this. I needed this dialogue and these conversations, these questions answered, so I could better navigate through this. is it a clerical, so Sister Younger, is it a clerical on the paperwork for South Dakota Works? It says that you need $500,000 of community involvement or something?
No, it's not on the so I had to write a business plan, right?
Okay.
To submit to GOED, their working group that funnels things into SD Works. So in my business plan, I said that the community is supporting this with $500,000 to make this happen. That's where the other money is the traction is coming from. So that would be a minimum that I would have assurance for when I submit the application on September 10th.
Okay, oh, thank you for that clarification. So it's, and I get it, you've got a lot going on out there, you've got monies going, you've got a road you just put in, so I know you've got a lot of projects that you're working on out there. If we were to, the reason for bringing up this $100,000 amendment was, then you have already $310,000, let's say, pledged. Then the other 190, because we got 210, 150 from the county, 60 from some other pledges that were pledged already this week. That gets included in that $500,000 number, I believe. The pledges from the community that you received, the county money. If the city were to do this 100,000, there's let's say $190,000 shortfall, right, of what you've put in your business plan. I suppose, is it technically the monastery could come up with that other 190,000 if they know that there's another process being put in place to be able to work this out and come up with some monies in the months to come, or? So
it's not all about the monastery, okay? So we don't have to do this. I mean, this is not I said this on Wednesday night. This is not the highest and best use of this 14,000 square foot of building. We're not going to get a lot of money for the lease. So that's not what this is about. Little Blessings and Family Worship Center are in their own crunch with the little space they have and the number of kids they have. And so their business will start to fall apart. Then they have their own corporate congregational things that they have to take care of. So the impetus to cease this ministry and transition it was what pushed Pastor Justin to call me in January. And so there are a lot of things working, as Councilman Danforth said. Nobody likes where we are. I don't like coming to you all and saying, I got this deadline. I don't like, I know Pastor Justin, this has been a hard thing for Family Worship Center. The staff at Little Blessings have hung in here. There's a couple parents here. They have lived with this ambiguity. Well, we might stay open till the end of December. If I had babies there, I'd be going, shoot, I'm going to find the sure thing. So everybody's under a lot of stress. Parents just have a new configuration for the elementary schools. That's stressful of it in itself. So there's a lot of stressors all over this, unfortunately. And the constraint is the time frame. There's nothing we can do about it. But we can't keep kicking the can down the road and saying, well, in 6 months we'll do this, or in 8 months we'll do that. There's no way for us to do that, because the staff and the parents of Little Blessing have to make decisions for their kids.
Follow up?
Councilman?
Thank you. And thank you for that. So just to clarify this then, so the monastery themselves, you guys don't have the extra 190,000 to put into this fund now but the potential of the city, let's say, entertaining this again next year, or these are unknowns, but we're talking about putting another fund together. So as more community involvement happens, there's going to be more monies to help reimburse, if you will, the monastery for the 190,000 that they did put in this. But you're saying you don't have the 190,000
Well,
to do that.
we've already put about $250,000 into it. We're donating land and building. So how far do we go
Right. Yep.
taking this all on? Because we already said this is not the cities, the counties, or the sisters to solve. This is a community effort. So if we keep taking on more and more, everybody will go, the sisters they'll just do it. If we had the $2.4 million, Little Blessings already would have been moved. Short and simple, we'd have done it. But
Just one final follow-up, Mayor. And so again, thank you for your clarification on that. The reason for this my thought process, just to understand where I'm going with this, was to buy some more time to where technically you don't come up with the other 190, you maybe do up front, but then it gets reimbursed later, with the direction we've been talking about as a community, which hopefully does bear fruit. So that was my thoughts behind this, was to start with this. It already gets you, 300,000, and then we will continue on this process as a community. So that's my reasoning for this, not at all against what's going on out there.
I know that.
It's just the process to get there is where I'm
It
kind of
is.
processing.
It's rigorous, isn't it?
Yeah, so thank you.
Councilman Shetty, do you have a problem if we go to a vote on the amendment? Councilman Bueller, go ahead, but it would be customary to let Councilman Shetty have the last word on his own amendment, but. Yeah, he is done, but anyway, Councilman Bueller, if you have something on the amendment, go.
Looking at me like,
Yeah.
nah, you don't get the dog.
No, is it on the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, you can,
But yes, just to clarify, with Councilman Shetty's proposal, the county portion of this isn't a one-shot 150. It's spread out also over a 5-year period. So that would not be in the piggy bank right to start out with. But anyway, that's a comment I want to clarify. Thank you.
all right, we're going to go to a vote on the amendment. If you are in favor of the amendment, does anyone need the amendment specified again? It's a one-time disbursement of $100,000. If you are in favor of that amendment, you will say aye. If you are against that amendment, you will say no. Assistant Director Strickland. Councilman Danforth? Yep.
This is just to get another vote on
Yeah, we got to get.
Yeah.
the actual.
Yeah,
This is just to get the amendment changed.
This is just to get the amendment
And then we still
handled.
have to vote
Yeah.
on.
Yes. So Assistant Director Strickerts, would you please call the roll?
Danforth,
No.
Helene, Jurens,
No.
Peters,
Hey.
Shuddy,
Yes.
Tupper,
No.
and Bueller.
Motion fails. We're back to discussion upon the original motion, which is the approval of the development agreement with the Mother of God Monastery for the transition of Little Blessings Daycare. Councilman Tupper?
Well, we've been talking about this for a long time, so I'll try to keep it short, but when it comes to me and the benefit of kids or youth in the community, it might get a little long. So we've identified, like I said earlier, a crisis before this even came about. And I got to thank Pastor Manzi for working with the sisters and keeping Little Blessings open, because they could have closed a long time ago. I'm not very good at when it comes to investing money for my future, but I sure am at investing money into the youth of this community, because the kids that she's going to watch, or the kids running up and down the hallway at the Boys and Girls Club, or the kids that in any other daycare, are future leaders of this community. They're not only that, but they're future employees of these businesses that may contribute. I'm a firm believer in investing in the future of our community. It's been in my heart and soul for pretty much my whole life. So no matter what it is, that is the future of our community. And I mean, they're going to be the future city managers or future mayors or future sisters, or Sarah's did a lot of work. I mean, we've identified 600 church people. So how do we look at this? Sister Barb's is just a Band-Aid on this. So I'm going to set this out as maybe a challenge to the whole community, that we've identified a dilemma. I mean, it is a huge dilemma. It's holding our whole community back. I'm going to set this out as a challenge to the leaders of this community, whether they be business leaders or whoever, to step up to the plate, because we still need to raise $4 or $5 million to take care of this whole issue. What Sister Barb's doing is just a small part of it, and bless your heart for it, because I do have a soft spot in my heart for the kids that you're willing to take care of. And I always will, to the day I'm gone. That's where my investment goes, is in the youth of our community, because they are our future. And thank you very much.
Councilman Shetty?
Thank you, Mayor. And so, yeah, so on this, going to this original motion, I am all for giving dollars, be it the $350,000. My concern is how we go about doing it and just the avenue we do it. And so that's where, even if my vote comes, I'm going to be voting no against it, but it's not against what the monastery is doing. It's not against us even as a city. It's just the avenue we're going about it. I'm just a little, I just have a different approach, I guess, in doing it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Jurens?
My vote will be no also, and it's not because I don't care about kids. I just think that really, really needs to be clear with our discussion tonight. If this was a $350,000 loan to be repaid back over time and that worked in the formula to get this thing to go through, I'd be here all over this. I am just having a philosophical reason for, quote, call it what you want, money without strings attached. And I realize it's going to about as honest of a place that you could ask for. So I'm not saying to put strings attached, but that's where my no vote will be tonight, is not having a clear way and a vision with our city council and our city going forward with additional requests that are likely heading our way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Beeler?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for City Manager Mack. What do we subsidize the Boys and Girls Club for on an annual basis?
$250,000.
Thank you.
Any further commentary? All right, and we'll go straight to a vote. I'll just say I want to thank the council for the discussion. It's been a long, we've had several meetings on this already, and I'll just say I do believe that this is an economic development issue for Watertown, and it is a community-wide issue. I did not always feel that way. I had to be brought into the fold, just like a lot of other people have. I will say, I know that several county commissioners were not in favor of this probably a month ago. I know that most of the council was also not in favor of this a month ago. And I'm not exactly sure where the vote is right now, but I believe I know that minds have been changed when they have realized that this is a community issue. And I would actually like to ask others to at least consider the arguments that we have for this, because just because, it's like anything else. I drive the same 6 roads 90% of the time. It doesn't mean that I'm against the 220 miles of roads in Watertown that I don't drive, because I understand it's a community-wide issue. I only use 2 parks, Lincoln Park and then the golf course. It doesn't mean I'm against the other parks, because I understand it's a community benefit to have these issues. And daycare is an issue because your business will be affected. Your quality of life will be affected. Let's talk about the roads. Personal consumption expenditures by household in Watertown is about $50,000 a year. Let's say if you lose 100 families or even 50 families, that's $2.5 million at least that you're losing in just discretionary spending in this community. Every dollar you spend in this community goes over 7 times. How much taxes are you losing then if you lose 50 families? You're going to end up money ahead supporting this and keeping these families here and growing this community. You're going to have more money for those roads, for those quality of life issues, for public safety. It's going to lift all boats, and that's one of the things that I have gotten my head around it, but I totally understand the struggle. I still have a hard time with a lot of it, is this government's role, but I'm not exactly sure on the philosophy, but I know how I stand with this community, and I want the best for the future of this community, so I will call the vote now. So if you are in favor of this development agreement, you will say aye. If you are opposed, you will say nay. Assistant Director Strickerts, please call the roll.
Danforth,
Aye.
Holeen,
Aye.
Jurens,
No.
Peters,
Aye.
Shuddy,
Nope.
Tupper,
Right.
Bueller.
Motion carries. I'm going to, no, sorry. And no offense, I just don't allow clapping, because if I allow clapping, then I have to allow booing, and, you know, it's just not a road I want to go down. Yeah. With the council, unless the council objects, I would like to shift up the agenda. We will take a break after this, but I know that there are 3 people in the back of the room, so I would like to change the agenda to take up item 12C, the authorization for the city manager to or her designee to sign a lease and any ancillary documents necessary to effectuate the transition with Magic LLC. Is that okay with you, gentlemen? I assume that you don't want to stay here another 2 hours. Council, is there any objection to that? Okay. That is what we're going to take on. We are going to start by going to our city attorney, Lisa Carrico.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that the summary that was attached to the agenda pretty much well explains it. This was originally a lease from 1996 with Thunder Road. They built the buildings, and then in exchange, the buildings were turned over to the city along with a 30-year lease to the owners of Thunder Road with a 10-year renewal after the 30 years. The 30 years ends in 27. At that time, the current owner, John Sperry, or James Sperry, wanted to sell the business part of it, and he has gone into negotiations and entered into a purchase agreement with Magic LLC. Because the lease was very old and was actually now we are under a city manager form of government, we have made some revisions to the lease, and I've asked you to approve it for Magic to take over the lease of Thunder Road and do its operations. And there might be other questions, which Dusty Roddick can also answer, our Park and Rec Director.
Director Roddick, would you like to add anything before we go to public hearing? All right, thank you. We will go to a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? You don't have to. I would like to. Could one of you come forward and just say that you're here, and, you know, so that if the council has a question, we know who to address it to?
Kyle Weisner, co-owner in Magic LLC.
Okay, Mr. Weisner?
Could you hear me?
Well, I could, but I don't think that the people watching from home could. No. Yeah.
There we go, testing.
Hey.
Got it.
Okay, Kyle Weisner from Magic LLC. So I know that you're also not alone, so if you have questions, we know who to ask them to, but you don't want to add anything at this point in a public hearing?
No, thank you.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing and ask for council to make a motion on the authorization to sign a lease and other documents to effectuate the transaction with Magic LLC. Motion made by Councilman Danforth, seconded by Councilman Peters. Let's open it up for discussion, council. Councilman Beeler?
Thank you. What has changed? Has there been any changes to this lease from what it was before?
The original, yes, there is, and as a matter of fact, I believe in the summary, let me pull it up here. So originally, the tenant was the one who provided the fire hazard insurance for the building. In this current lease, the new tenants are asking that we cover that cost. They are still responsible, though, for their commercial liability, workman's comp, all of the other insurance, and naming us as an additional insured. There is also, which is the same, which is a 5% of the gross revenues. However, there's one caveat, which is for revenue over $500,000, it's 2%. So they pay us 5% up to $500,000 of revenue, and then after that, it's 2%.
Could I ask, if you don't mind, could I ask what it was before this?
5%.
Over $500,000?
No, it was just 5% of gross.
Okay.
Yep, and it's still gross, but we put in a sliding scale, partly because there are improvements that need to be done to the facility, and we are putting some of that onus on the tenant, so obviously they need to be able to afford that.
Councilman Danforth?
The previous tenant what obligations did they have in regards to maintenance, repairs, et cetera, of the facility? Let's say the building structure.
They were, can you hear me okay? They were responsible for maintenance and repairs. However, it was kind of to their own liking, I guess I would say. There was no like bar other than to the extent that the city on occasion could come in and say, hey, you need to, this isn't safe or something like that, that they would have to redo it. In this one, we did put some clarification that the Park and Rec director can basically come in and make sure that it's up to the same standards as our own city facilities, other city facilities that we run.
So let's just say, and I don't know what it's got in there, so let's pretend that it has AC and a furnace. And so would it be the current lessee's responsibility to make sure that's in effective operating order?
It was vague.
No?
I don't know if we actually asked them to. It was vague in the lease.
Does the lease require them to maintain it in operating order?
In the current lease.
Current
I'd
lease.
have to look.
Okay, because the reason being is, have we inspected it to know that the current leasee has done their responsibility before it gets handed off? Because once it gets handed off, we're accepting all that responsibility, correct?
Yes, we are.
So if we should be holding the current leasee to the terms, if that was their responsibility, to confirm it is in fact at the point of handoff in operating order.
Correct. We can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Tupper?
So you kind of lost me there. So the old leasee, or the current leasee, excuse me, should be responsible for all maintenance on the facility, which would include AC or HVAC system.
We are responsible for, in the new lease, are we in current or new? Which one are you asking
current
about? Sorry.
lease.
Current? I would have to look. It's pretty.
So that's a big question that I can't make a decision on without knowing that.
Oh,
Yep,
Dusty's
here
coming.
comes
He must know.
Director Roddick.
I can't tell you that I know for sure.
Okay. I'm going to
Good
find
evening,
it.
Council, Mayor. Well, I better press my button as well. While not having memorized the entire former lease, I don't believe there's any specific language that held the current lease owner to any standard as it related to the maintenance of the HVAC system.
So my question is, if the furnace went out middle of winter time and it's not a budgeted item and we're gonna all of a sudden put a new furnace in that building for somebody else?
Yes.
Are the new, what's the new leasee's expectations?
So a lot of the previous lease, the way I read it, was written around the construction of the facility. So the previous owner paid for a lot of the property and then turned over those rights to the city. And so we've rewritten it or negotiated to rewrite it to get it a little more like a landlord-rentee relationship.
Oh, yeah, I know, like over in the transit building, that building was built by the transit, dedicated to the city. We still carry insurance and do all the maintenance on the building. I can't see the city owning a piece of property like this and expected to have all the unexpected costs, put it that way.
We have
City
several,
manager?
we have several properties where that is
Yeah, I get
how it works. The event center, the Heritage Museum, the auditorium, the Mace, Boys and Girls Club.
I guess you're right. Yeah, you can stop anytime now, so.
Councilman Danforth?
I just want to make sure that my questioning is clear. If there was an obligation, and this has nothing to do with these gentlemen that are trying to do this, right? If the obligation for the handoff meant that everything was at an operating level, let's say it's the furnace, for lack of better terms, then what I don't want to see is these guys, we sign a lease tonight or agree to the lease, and we find out they go in there tomorrow and the furnace doesn't work and it costs us thousands of dollars. Because I want to understand what the obligation was of the previous tenant, so that we know we have a clean line that says it works, and at some point thereafter it doesn't work, it's our obligation according to the lease. That's all I'm looking for.
Right, and
Handoff that says, it is what it is, it does work, now it's our baby.
we can do that, and the lease says that the current tenant has responsibility for all maintenance and repairs of the improvements.
So that should all be checked out
It should.
if it hasn't been, and then obligated back to the current leasee,
Correct.
so that these gentlemen and/or women, they know what they're getting.
Correct.
And we know what we're getting with agreeing to the lease.
Correct.
Any further conversation, questions? All right. The motion, excuse me. Motion is to authorize the city manager or designee to sign a lease and any other documents necessary to effectuate the transaction with Magic LLC. All those in favor will say aye, opposed nay. Assistant Director Strickerts.
Danforth,
Aye.
Poleen,
Aye.
Jurens,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Shuddy,
Aye.
Tupper,
Aye.
Bueller.
Motion carries. Thank you for waiting, gentlemen. Sorry about that. I'm going to go 5 minutes, and we're just going to take a quick break just to stretch our legs because we've got a lot of items to go, but understand that we have a lot of items to go. So come back as fast as you can. Thank you very much. So we're at brief recess. so we can finish our work for tonight. Item 10A is an approval of a change order number 1 final for the 2024 alley improvement project number 2413 with Timmons Construction for an increase of roughly $4,000 for a new contract price of roughly $117,000. Assistant City Manager Von Eye.
Thank you, Mayor. Apologize, this probably could have been on consent. It's a nominal change order, final change order for balance of quantities, meaning when the work was done, all the unit bid prices were balanced out based on the actual placed quantities. And we've got a net change order of a nominal increase of a little under $4,000 on a $117,000 contract.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve the change order? Motion made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Any discussion on this, council? Councilman Tupper? No. Any discussion, any questions? All right. Well, Councilman Peters is gone, so I'm going to do a roll call vote. Assistant Director Strickerts, would you please call the roll?
Danforth,
Yes.
Pauline,
Aye.
Jurens,
Aye.
Shuddy,
Aye.
Tupper,
Aye.
Bueller.
And Councilman Peters is here, so you can ask him.
Peters.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 11A is a first reading of an ordinance zoning text amendment to wastewater system general regulations of the revised ordinances of the City of Watertown. Director Von Eye.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, another ordinance amendment here. This pertains to Chapter 17, so this is nothing that the Planning Commission had to chime in on. They help regulate and draft ordinance revisions for Chapter 21 that relate to zoning. 17, this is wastewater operations and administration type language throughout parts of Chapter 17. And this amendment helps to clarify when and where individual wastewater service connections are required as the community develops. We've had existing language. The goal and the intent with any new development is that every building has its own separate sewer service. In years past, decades past, we've had a multitude of houses and other separately owned structures that have shared sewer service lines. And what that does then is causes confusion and a little bit of finger pointing and uncertainty on who's responsible for what when that shared service line fails. So in order to prevent that, it's normal and customary throughout public sewer systems that each separate owner have their own individual service line. And this language really is just a clarification of the rule that already existed. There are a couple of exceptions to that rule as determined appropriate by the city engineer. And with that, I'll stand by for questions. This does take 2 readings, so this being the first, I'll leave it at that and stand by for any questions.
And this is just first reading, so no motion is necessary. Council, are there any questions, conversation on this?
Well, yeah.
Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I think we went through this similar circumstances with 10th, didn't we? We had some of the same issues on 10th when we redid that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the reconstruction of 10th Avenue, we had non-conforming service connections reconnect in a conforming manner where each house had their own individual separate.
Because I know there was a lot of that kind of manifold.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Director Von Eye, so this is basically the rule that the city has been operating under, but we're just changing the language to make it official?
Changing the language to just add clarity on the intent behind what was already in place. We're clarifying the language that already existed.
Okay. All right. Any further questions or comments? All right, moving on to 11B, which is also a first reading, amending the zoning map of the City of Watertown for a portion of property in Watertown Sales Pavilion, second edition, from I-1 to C3. Director Von Eye.
Thank you, Mayor. Pulling up teams here. should be a map on Teams, is that, okay. So this is a property along Highway 20. It's the Crocker's Auto Body Repair, Crocker's Collision, I think is the formal name. You'll see in the turquoise area that there are two forms of zoning on this land, and they're simply cleaning up the corner of it that's not contiguously zoned C3, so that that parcel would all be uniformly zoned C3 from the current purple shaded area that's I-1. So it's a little bit of a housekeeping effort on their end to make that parcel all one uniform zoning district. This went to the Planning Commission, recommended approval to the City Council, and subsequent to any approval by the council, we then would also require administrative plat come forward. It may be a formal plat that goes to the Planning Commission, but anyway, we would get a plat on record that formally plats this parcel that hasn't been accomplished yet.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments, council? All right, seems pretty straightforward. Item 11C is a first reading of an ordinance authorizing the finance officer to certify the property tax levy to the Cottington County Auditor. Assistant Director Strickerts. Or City Manager Mack. It's up to you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our annual property tax levy ordinance. This is a first reading. We will be requesting from the county total amount of $4,458,654, which is $174,467 increase over the 2024 property taxes. That's 3% CPI is set by the state and an estimated growth of 1.6%.
Thank you very much, City Manager. Any questions or comments, council? All right. We'll move on to item 12A, an application for a transfer of a retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license and video lottery license from Tommy's Lanes to Larry Bachman. Assistant Director.
Basically, this is just a transfer. All fees have been paid, the notice of hearing has been published, and then the application and all the paperwork is in order.
Thank you very much. I will open up public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? I'll close the public hearing, ask for council action. Can I get a motion to approve the transfer? Motion made by Councilman Schutte, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Any questions or comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the transfer. I'm just going to do a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item 12B is an approval of a private hangar ground lease agreement at the Watertown Regional Airport with Blacklist LLC in the amount of $1,125. Director Von Eye.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a customary private hangar ground lease. It follows the format and monetary fees that would be customary to other private hangar ground leases out at the airport. If you recall, we're going through a design phase right now for expanding our private hangar design area, or excuse me, private hangar area on the airport grounds. And with that, we will bring 3 additional private hangar stalls, land areas that become available for lease. We've got a couple interested parties in swallowing up those 3 areas. This one in particular wants one bad enough. They just want to get into a land lease with us to ensure they lock in their place for the building of their private hangar once we get our public improvements completed to accommodate that. They know it'll be a good handful of months before they can pull a building permit for a hangar, but nonetheless, they want to go ahead and execute a ground lease to preserve their spot. With that, I'd stand by for any questions.
Thank you. I'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? I'll close the public hearing and open it up for council action. Can I get a motion to approve the lease? Motion made by Councilman Peters. Seconded by Councilman Danforth. Thank you. Any questions or comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the lease. I'm just going to do a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. I'm just going to tell you, even if you don't say anything, you're going down as an aye. Because when you do a voice vote like that, and if no one says nay, you are automatically counted as an aye. I'm just telling you. So we knew that. Yeah, okay. All right. So motion carries. I figured no one was going to be too worried over that. Item 12D is a second reading of an ordinance amending Title 12 Licenses and Regulations, repealing Section 12.10 regarding security guard in its entirety. City Attorney Carrico?
Thank you, Mayor. So basically, this is a repeal of the security guard license ordinance. Part of the motivation for this was we actually, if you work directly for an employer such as, we'll just pick on Target, and you are a security guard who gets your paycheck from Target, you don't have to be licensed. But if you own a firm that is then hired by Target, then you need to be licensed. We don't get a lot of applications through this, and it is in consultation with staff. We frankly don't want to be in the business of doing background checks on people for private business. So we are asking to repeal this.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve the amendment? Motion made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Peters. Let's have some conversation or questions, council. Hearing none, the motion is to approve the amendment regarding security guard licensing and regulations. All those in favor, please say aye now. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We're on to item 13D, which is now A, or we'll just call it 13D. An approval of an amendment to the development agreement with J&J Land Sales LLC for the Lakes of Willow Creek First Edition development. Director Von Aye.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason we had to bump this one up is because the subsequent action item is germane to the action result of this item. This has to do with the subdivision in the Lakes of Willow Creek First Edition. We've met with the developer on a few different occasions where they were exploring options or opportunities for the city to participate in some of their subdivision improvements. The most customary and common one that we found some common ground on to go ahead and facilitate city participation would be the upsizing of the sanitary sewer mains that they installed. It is normal and customary for the city to help participate in those costs of the upsizing of those pipes for those sewer mains. That wasn't an initial ask and wasn't initially contemplated in the original development agreement. So this amendment would help to accomplish that. That puts the city contribution to the amount of $56,128.10. And upon approval, the subsequent council action tonight would be memorializing that cost in a cost recovery format so that when future development comes in, we can recoup our $56,000 as their contributions for developing that land are collected at the time of their development. With that, I stand by for any questions.
Thank you very much, Director. I am going to allow council the leniency to speak and question both items 13D and 13A as they are very similar, but I will ask for a specific motion on approving this amendment to the development agreement. Motion made by Councilman Jurens, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Any conversation? The motion is to approve the amendment to the development agreement. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item 13A, an approval of a resolution establishing a public infrastructure cost recovery for the upsizing sanitary sewer for the Lakes of Willow Creek First Edition. Anything to add, Director?
The only add I would mention is that by passing this through resolution, we've got the appropriate documentation to file at the courthouse to memorialize this so that buyers of future land that would owe this money would be aware in their title searches. So just wanted to make that point clear.
That's a good thing to have on there. So, can I get a motion, please, to approve the resolution? Motion made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Danforth. Comments, questions? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the resolution. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item 13B is an approval of a resolution to dissolve the TIF District Number 2 comprising Mallard Point Industrial Park after a duration of 20 years. City Manager Mack?
Thank you, Mayor. This is exactly what it says it is. This TIF has been in place since 2004, so we're required by law to dissolve it. At a future date, we will be bringing a resolution forward for the council to write off the loan. An interfund loan was taken out at the time that this TIF was put into place, and it has not performed to pay off the internal loan. I do not have that dollar amount. Our finance officer does not have the exact amount. We'll have it after it's fully dissolved.
The motion is to approve the resolution to dissolve TIF District Number 2. Can I get that motion from council? Motion made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Comments, questions? Motion is to approve the dissolution of TIF District Number 2. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item 13C is an approval of a resolution to oppose the passing of Initiated Measure 28. City Manager Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. We've had several discussions about IM 28. What you have in front of you is a resolution opposing the passage of IM 28. You may hear out in the community that cities would be exempted from this measure. They would still be allowed to collect the sales tax on consumables. That is a very gray area. The initiated measure was drafted with language that says cities are exempted. However, that's in conflict with state statute. The Attorney General has stated that it will need to be clarified either through the legislature or through the court system if cities are still allowed to collect that. I would rather err on the side of caution than let that play out in either the legislature or the court system. Should it come to fruition and should it be determined that cities are not allowed to collect that tax, it'd be about a 10% reduction in our sales tax collections right off the top, estimating an annual nearly $2.2 million in loss. In 2023, we collected almost $21 million in sales tax revenue, and currently, year to date, end of July, we've collected about $12 million. As most of you know and are aware, actually, we just did the property tax levy, $4.5 million in property taxes. A vast majority of the city's revenue comes from sales tax. And in order for us to continue to operate and do the things that you all deem important, those dollars are important to our budgets. Just for context, we have about $1.2 million worth of external organization asks in front of us for the 2025 budget. That's half of that $2.2 million, roughly. So it certainly would have an impact, not just on the city's operations, but on what we're able to do community-wise as well. With that, I'll stand by for any questions.
The desired motion is to approve the resolution to oppose the passing of Initiated Measure 28. Can I get that motion? Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Peters. So open it up for comments or questions. Councilman Peters?
I guess I would just state the importance of opposing this as well. I think this is just bad all over, and if this passes, we need to educate folks, to Amanda's point. I don't think anybody really understands the impact of this, and the South Dakota retailers are doing a nice job heading this up, but if this passes, there's a lot of things we won't be able to do financially and in South Dakota, so.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? I'll just say I would also urge to the passing of this resolution and urge people to vote against this initiated measure because it's just a poorly written law. Whenever the Attorney General comes out and says that it's going to have to be clarified either by the legislature or in court, that is an example of just a poorly written law. And if you pass a poorly written law, you get really poor governance. And as an example, it's like it says it takes away the taxes on consumables. Well, consumables is an extremely broad, undefined, undefined, unspecific term in this law that includes, yeah, it includes, pop, it includes toilet paper, vaping products, tobacco. It could include all sorts of things, and it's just not what the intent was. If the intent was just food, that's an entirely different thing. This is not what that law does. And also the fear among many is that if you pass this and you take away that revenue, well, it's going to have to be made up somewhere, and the most logical way would be with an income tax. So I just fear the passing of this, so I will be voting for this resolution. Any further comments? Councilman Jurens.
And more property tax in the city.
Yeah.
That's the only way we could do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean,
State
cities
would be income tax, city would be property tax.
Well, I basically say government will find another way to fund the deficit. Councilman Bueller? Yeah. All right. Motion is to approve the resolution to oppose the passing of initiated measure 28. All those in favor will say aye, opposed nay. Assistant Director Strickitz?
Danforth,
Aye.
Poleen,
Aye.
Jurens,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Shuddy,
Aye.
Tupper,
Aye.
Bueller,
Motion carries. Item 13E is an approval of a development agreement with the, we're all done. Woohoo! All right, any city council member announcements or introduction of topics for future discussion? Councilman Danforth?
Yeah. Mayor, I think, I hate to bring it up, but the discussion that we had earlier in regards to the possible changing of the refund of the cannabis, I think we need to take a serious look at the methodology of those high dollar item fees. The example that Mr. Fierstead had given, that Brookings does, that, if you come in March, you pay 9 months worth of the monthly fee amount. I think that's a better way to manage those high dollar items. We're not worried about the items where you come in and pay $100. If it changes to $125, it's no big deal. But I think that one item, and maybe we've got others, I'm not sure, should at least get looked at from a procedural standpoint.
Councilman, any further comments, questions? City manager report?
Mayor, the only thing I have tonight is we will not have a work session on Monday. Were you excited for that? You can definitely come hang out with me on Monday if you like. We have several staff that are going to be out and at least one councilman who is going to be gone, who shall remain nameless, who may be hunting.
Oh, we know that's not me. Okay, Council, City Attorney Carrico, we had a motion prior to this meeting to go into executive session. I called us out, but we were unfinished with that. So as far as my understanding, I am okay calling us back in executive session because there was a motion made and it was voted upon. And so, all right. I am going to say we're going to go back into executive session. We are not going to have any action when we are done. So this will be the end of the meeting as far as the viewing for anybody out there. And I will take a motion to adjourn at the end of the executive session. So we're in executive session.